Sharing domestic responsibilities leads to more equitable relationships and sets better examples for children. Now, we have decline in employment opportunities as one of the plights. Ugandan boys face significant challenges transitioning from education to employment, including limited job opportunities and high youth unemployment rates. Unfortunately, the traditional views of masculinity emphasize men being providers, often creates shame or identity loss when men are unemployed. There's also a decline of traditional male-dominated industries. Sectors like manufacturing, construction, and mining, which historically employed large numbers of men, have declined due to automation, outsourcing, and environmental regulations. The other is technological change and automation. As machines and software replace routine physical and even cognitive tasks, and jobs such as digging trenches, etc., which once sustained millions of men, are disappearing. There is the educational gap. In Uganda, women are now earning more education and degrees than men, as the job market increasingly favors higher education and soft skills. Men who lack these qualifications are at a disadvantage. We have changing gender roles. With more women entering the workforce and assuming leadership roles, gender dynamics in employment have shifted. Some men still struggle with identity and self-worth when unable to fulfill the traditional role of provider, which can lead to withdrawal from the workforce altogether. The other is mental health and substance abuse. Mental health challenges such as depression and addiction are more common among the long-term unemployed men. Unfortunately, the stigma around men seeking mental health support often worsens the problem and reduces the chances of re-entering the workplace. School dropout. Research indicates that more boys than girls feel school is a complete waste of time. The Bureau of Statistics and Ministry of Education shows that around 44.2% of the boys who enroll in primary school do not complete primary 7. This means that each year, more than 1 million boys drop out before finishing primary education. We have juvenile delinquents. The gender disparity in Uganda has led to higher incarceration rates, homelessness, criminal activity, and gambling among boys. More than 78% of Uganda's prison population are male, many of whom entered the criminal justice system at a young age due to a lack of guidance and support. We have modernization. Family plays a critical role in a child's growth and development. An increasing number of mothers are taking up employment outside the family, struggling to balance work and parenting responsibilities. Meanwhile, many fathers are adopting passive childcare roles, leaving mothers to shoulder the burden alone. Parents are spending less time with children and instead leaving them under the care of nannies, caretakers, or exposed to technology. We are all guilty as charged. We have societal neglect of male vulnerabilities. Societal perceptions often portray men as inherently strong and self-reliant, leading to the neglect of their vulnerabilities. This mindset starts in childhood, where boys are socialized to suppress emotions, endure hardships without seeking help, and conform to rigid masculine roles. Lastly, we have mentoring boys and young men. Boys lack consistent and positive male figures, which hinders their development, particularly in learning how to handle responsibility, how to resolve conflict, and how to treat others with respect. Adults simply believe that the boys are okay and survive somehow in the big world. Ladies and gentlemen, for details on the plight of the boy child, please read chapter 7 of this report that we are launching today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Crispin Kaheru. Ladies and gentlemen, we're doing well. As per our program, we're going to have only one more presentation on the UHRC interventions in 2024, and then we shall have the launch of the report, then the discussant, plenary, and we close. Allow me to recognize a few other guests that joined us as we were proceeding. We have Miss Charlene Nalubwama from the British High Commission. We have sign language interpreters, Brian and Brenda, for the students with disabilities from Makerere University. You're all most welcome. We have Miss Brenda Kugonza, Executive Director, Women Human Rights Defenders. You're most welcome. Patrick Okecho from UNHCR, Assistant Legal Officer. We have Elizabeth Kemgisha from FIDA. She's Advocacy and Policy Officer. We have Gilbert Ainomugisha, Senior Clerk, Assistant Clerk to the Parliamentary Human Rights Committee. You're almost welcome. Without further ado, let's have Director Ruth Sekindi, Director Monitoring and Inspections, to take us through the highlights of UHRC interventions in the period under review. Director, you're most welcome.
Yes. So, of course, there are others. And then when it comes to the nature of alleged human rights violations, the allegations of freedom from torture, cruel, inhuman, and degrading treatment ranked highest among the complaints registered, with 90 complaints. These were followed by complaints involving alleged child maintenance against private individuals, and then the deprivation of the right to personal liberty followed suit, as you shall see, as you see on the screen. In fulfillment of its constitutional mandate to investigate alleged human rights violations, the Commission investigated 727 complaints. 60 complaints were mediated, and 3,691 complaints were referred to various institutions and organizations for appropriate management. The tribunal. In 2024, the UHRC tribunal had 197 matters and disposed of or concluded 98 complaints. A total of 238 million was awarded in compensation to victims of human rights violations. The violations involved included the right to freedom from torture, cruel, inhuman, and degrading treatment, the right to personal liberty, and the right to life. In financial year 2023-2024, Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs paid out 116 million shillings as compensation to victims of human rights violations. We currently have an outstanding balance of 619 million, which remains unpaid, reflecting a significant backlog in the implementation of our tribunal awards. Ladies and gentlemen, in the same year, the Commission conducted inspections to places of detention. The Commission carried out 457 inspections to various detention facilities across the country. These included 257 police stations, and we visited 118 police posts, and we also visited 78 government prisons and 4 remand homes. Our findings include overcrowding as number one. Ladies and gentlemen, the Commission noted that overcrowding in prisons has remained a challenge, with some prisons housing up to 4 times their designated capacities, especially with the men most affected. For majority of you here and those who do not know, we have a challenges of overcrowding, and our prisons are so packed, very packed, that the prisons, Uganda prisons, is overwhelmed. The Commission noted that the prison capacity is just 21,257, yet currently our prisons, Uganda prisons, has 80,076 by end of December. And that is, no, currently, that was before the printing, because we updated it. That is 367 0.7% occupancy. For example, Luzira is designed for 1,700, but it is currently holding 8,000 prisoners. And when you visit these prisons, you're overwhelmed at the numbers and how close and how small the space is. The other challenge we noted in terms of during our prison monitoring is pre-trial detention or prolonged pre-trial detention. Inmates on remand, those are people in detention awaiting legal proceedings, continue to be the highest number in prison facilities. UHRC found that 48.4% of the prison population are remand prisoners, and that is 38,733. And this is or was attributed to delayed investigations, court disruptions, and absence of magistrates or judicial officers. This violates the constitutional right of a fair and speedy trial. The other challenge is access to adequate food. In prisons, we noted that there is improvement when it comes to food. Inmates are receiving at least 2 meals a day despite the overcrowding, with some prisoners or prisons supplementing diets using food grown by inmates. Vulnerable groups like those with HIV/AIDS and mothers incarcerated with their children receive a special consideration. In regard to police, unfortunately, we noted that most suspects received only 1 meal a day, and many police officers or police stations rely on relatives or officers who provide the food from their pockets many times. Only a few stations receive official imprest, and even then, they indicated that it's very small. In terms of categorization, we noted that prisons continue to have this challenge of not separating remands from convicts, which violates Section 66 of the Prisons Act. And also we noted the continued detention of civil debtors as criminal offenders. And we have said this violates the international standards. We also noted that mothers continue to be incarcerated with their children, and some of these children found incarcerated with their mothers were between 1 month and 3 years, which in some cases was beyond the authorized statutory age of 18 months. Prisons has informed us that sometimes they have nowhere to take the children. The women come in pregnant and they give birth and they look for their husbands or relatives, and no one is willing to take the children. Of course, they can't throw them on the streets, and that becomes a challenge. So it goes beyond the stipulated time frame within which a mother can keep a child in detention. The other challenge is registration and record management. It was noted that even though there was improvement, there was still poor storage of records where the registers were fully utilized in police facilities. So the Commission has continued to recommend that government increases the budget of police because they still have a challenge. We note that even for stationery, as you see, some people still have to buy exercise books to record statements. In stationery, you should note that complainants were still being asked to buy exercise books and manila papers to record their statements or pay for their fuel. Details about prisons will be found in the report. When it came to human rights education and sensitization, that is as well as civic education, in 2024, the Commission continued implementing the human rights education activities, targeting duty bearers and rights holders in the informal and formal sector. Human rights education through community barazas was conducted, and we reached out to 16,481 community members, and this included men and women through community barazas and meetings, and we covered 50 districts nationwide. The Commission also conducted human rights education through road shows, and through road shows we reached 4,641 people. And we also had training workshops where we had 21 sessions around the country, and we reached 2,054 stakeholders. We also had school engagements where we went to 72 secondary schools, and we educated 11,885 students. And then media campaigns, we also conducted media campaigns on radio, television, talk shows, sport messages, and many people accessed our library. We also trained security agencies where we trained a total of 251 security officers from Uganda Police. We also had training, from UPDF. We also had training workshops and trained 21 training workshops where we targeted different various stakeholders and communities. We also printed IEC materials. We produced and disseminated the Bill of Rights. We developed digital scrolling-led display messages, and we produced and disseminated 400 pocket books for civic educators to guide their education of human rights-based approach to the parish development model. Other activities conducted included roadshows, barazas, we had meetings and engagements with local government. We had dialogue with vulnerable persons. We had radio drama skits. We had press briefings, and we commemorated International Human Rights Days. In regard to finance and administration, ladies and gentlemen, the Commission is fully constituted. And we have 6 members and the chairperson with us, as you have seen them. And the Commission was supported with 187 members of staff during the year. In terms of funding, Government of Uganda remained the major funding source of the Commission as required by the Paris Principles and received a total of 18.667 billion. This amount was supplemented by contributions from our development partners who gave us 1.6 billion shillings. Uganda's development partners included, I'm going to mention some, they included the Justice, Law and Order sector, the German Corporation for International Development, UNFPA, UNDP, UNODC, Enable, the Danish Institute, and many others. The list is long, it's in the report. In terms of regional coverage, UHRC has 24 offices with a head office, with 1 head office, 12 regional offices, 11 field offices. These include Gulu, Arua, Moroto, Soroti, Jinja, Central, which is also in Kampala, or Kampala office, Masaka, Mbarara, Fort Portal, Hoi Malira, and Kavale. We have field offices which include found in Kalangala, Buvuma, Kasese, Bundibujo, Moyo, Kitgum, Pader, Kotido, Nakavrit, Kapchora, and Kaviramaido. Details of the finance and administration can be found in the report. Ladies and gentlemen, we also submitted our report, positions on bills before Parliament, which you'll find in Chapter 12. And in Chapter 13, the Commission gives an update on Uganda's reporting obligations to international and regional human rights mechanisms and the ratification of the treaties and how we are faring as a country. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Ruth. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, we are going to have the chairperson and the members of the commission before us to officially or to publicly launch the 27th annual report. The chairperson, Uganda Human Rights Commission, Madam Mariam Wangadia, together with the members, will come to the front here. We're going to have a countdown. And then also, I've been informed that the ambassadors are going to join you, honorable members of the commission, as we publicly launch the 27th annual report. That's Lady Justice, our very own, to join us, who was also a draft person for the report. You're most welcome, Lady Justice. We also would like to invite the ambassadors in the house to join us. Thank you very much. You're most welcome. Could we please, media, could we please have the countdown? Our honorable ambassadors are joining us, and then we can do the countdown.
Stop and we will just get the reports. The countdown.
Give us a minute. Give us a minute for everyone to have a copy. Then we can count down.
Representatives of the UK, please come and join us. So we raise the report and launch the launcher. You declare the launch.
We are doing a countdown 1 to 9. I'll be counting, then you can launch. Yes. Yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
We hereby launch the report. So it is hereby launched.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. And then we also have to sign on the dummy over here. Then we'll have the
Laughing all around as you turn it on.
Thank you very much, the honorable members of the commission, as well as the ambassadors present. I would kindly request my team to help me remove this dummy and do our discussant for the day. Dr. Zahara Nampeo is going to share with us a brief presentation of the report. We'll have a plenary thereafter close and have some refreshments. Dr. Zahara, you're most welcome.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. Good afternoon, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. Thank you for inviting me to be part of the launch of yet another annual report of the Commission. I congratulate the Uganda Human Rights Commission for publishing this annual report, the 27th, a step in the fulfillment of your mandate as provided under Article 52 of the Constitution of Uganda. Please, let's give a hand clap to the Uganda Human Rights Commission. Sometimes, in times like this, a hand clap is all we have to encourage each other. Nelson Mandela told us that to deny people their human rights is to challenge their very humanity. So by all means, we must document, and I commend the Commission for this 27th report, documenting achievements and challenges in regard to human rights and freedoms in Uganda in 2024. As you've heard from the different presenters, the report follows both a thematic focus as well as a process one. And the two approaches complement each other. The thematic focus builds on the jurisprudence on particular substantive rights, while the process approach outlines the work of the Commission, including inspections, public education, and complaints handling. Generally, the report enjoys the entrenchment within key international, regional, and national legal and policy frameworks, setting a strong normative standard for discussing the key thematic issues. Each of the chapters draws on the applicable legal and policy framework, which guides each particular thematic focus. This approach, ladies and gentlemen, is crucial because it creates a necessary link to the standards and norms set out by law for the duty bearers, be it a line ministry, a department, or other government agency. The selection of thematic issues is also an interesting one. And I must say, to me, I found it people-centric, providing an overlap of issues affecting the majority of Ugandans, from traders affected by taxes, to domestic workers, refugees, and the boy child. It attempts to capture the heterogenic nature of people in Uganda and the rights issues affecting them. I also commend the holistic approach adopted in addressing the selected issues. For instance, the first chapter that analyzes the human rights implications of Uganda's tax system, the traders' strike, and the impact of the EFRIS advances arguments that touch on various rights such as infringement on access to court and fair hearing for persons who have tax disputes, restriction of freedom of expression and access to information, the right to privacy, inadequate participation of people in tax matters, as well as inadequate protection against harmful commodities and behaviors. I will call this the interconnectedness of rights. Just through this analytical lens, the report gives one a broad spectrum of both civil and political rights, as well as economic and social rights. Additionally, this approach emphasizes the tripartite typology of the state obligations: the obligation to respect, to protect, and to fulfill the rights of its citizens and the people under its care. It reminds us that government development programs must be reflective of the human rights-based approach principles such as participation, empowerment, equality, non-discrimination, and legality, as we talk about the National Development Plan for sustainable socio-economic transformation. Of course, the discussion on the chapter on traders and taxes leaves one wondering, for instance, why many people avoid to pay taxes. Is it pure bad manners? Is it a failure in complementarity of an economy in which everyone should benefit? Or is it a lack of trust by citizens? A 2021 report by the Uganda National Academy of Sciences highlighted the intrinsic value of trust in charting a development path, and it interrogated the concepts of trust, inclusion, belonging, and ownership as being elusive for many Ugandans. Do Uganda's traders trust their state? Do they feel that they belong? The question of taxation, therefore, is one that cannot be taken lightly, as it is indicative of many other aspects, including citizenship, welfare, and livelihood for many. Chapter 2 on liberalization of education and human rights concerns in Uganda underscores the importance of access to quality education for every child. Let us remember, one book, one pen, one child, one teacher can change the world. These are the words of Malala Yousafzai, a Pakistani education activist, and he couldn't be more right. The report raises concerns of liberalizing education, particularly through privatization, negatively impacting access, quality, and affordability, particularly for low-income families, and potentially undermining the principle that education is a fundamental right. For many people, education is that step that will make them break out of that poverty cycle. The report notes that the government has not effectively regulated and monitored private providers or ensuring that they adhere to the basic requirements and minimum standards. The erosion of a right such as education deepens pre-existing inequalities and goes back to the question I mentioned earlier of interconnectedness of rights, which is also flagged by the taxation system, because you keep pushing those who are disadvantaged under the radar. The International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, which was ratified by Uganda in January 1987 in its General Comment number 13, allows private actors to establish and direct schools, but it also imposes certain obligations. Therefore, this liberty that the government has allowed for private actors to manage and own schools is subject to those minimum standards that are laid out for the state, and the state is mandated to ensure that they conform. I commend the recommendations in the report for government to regulate school fees and adopt a policy on private education and training. I would have also wanted to hear a bit more about the challenges of the full rollout and implementation of the new lower secondary competence-based curriculum that focuses on skills and competencies rather than solely on theoretical knowledge. This is something that I call upon the Commission to further investigate in the future. Still on the issue of indivisibility of rights, the interconnectedness, Chapter 3 on overcrowding in prisons goes ahead to highlight the same, and it poses significant human rights challenges. We had them: the right to health, physical and mental integrity, freedom from torture. Prisons, for many of us, are out of public sight and most often out of mind. But because we are all potential prisoners, some in gazetted or even ungazetted places, I commend the Commission for flagging this seemingly ordinary issue. We seem to want to deal with hardcore human rights, and by this, I'm sure in the room you're all contemplating just now what I mean by hardcore human rights issues. It is easy now to say 1, 2, 3. And we may easily forget that there is this vulnerable group of persons who also exist, and I was happy to see a focus on this issue in this year's report. Moreover, inclusion of chapters on aspects such as the refugee situation in Uganda, women human rights defenders, I also count myself one of those, but I didn't ululate when they were discussing that section, and the human rights concerns on domestic workers in Uganda augments the foundational principle of non-discrimination. For example, for domestic workers, it is easy to disregard these if we are looking at the pedestal of national human rights issues. And yet we forget that this section of workers also face grave rights violations, as has been outlined in the report. And especially so that many of us in our homes have these workers, that this is a matter that is so close to all of us, we understand it so well. So, and how often do we take time to think about such an issue? Thank you very much, Uganda Human Rights Commission, for flagging this. And by doing this, and the focus on marginalized groups, we hear loudly the strong message that you're sending, that no persons are considered less than or should be treated differently from others. No Ugandans deserve to enjoy more rights than others. Focusing on marginalization is one way through the Uganda Human Rights Commission supports the government of Uganda to protect victims of violations of human rights as mandated in the Constitution. Therefore, it is only right to call upon the government of Uganda to do more to protect these individuals from household, community, and national shock that emerges from systemic, economic, and social deprivation, alienation, and disenfranchisement. Let me now tackle the issue of the plight of the boy child in Uganda and attendant human rights concerns that has made its way into the Commission's report. There are growing sentiments of concern that gender disparity has shifted focus towards empowering girls, leaving boys' unique challenges largely addressed. Higher school dropout rates, limited mentorship, societal pressures. This is all true, and I do agree. But it is also true that gender equity involves acknowledging and addressing the distinct challenges faced by both genders, and to balance the well-being and development of these two genders. We must be careful not to look at this issue of the plight of the boy child in isolation and at micro level. Nationwide, girls still have a higher school dropout rate compared to boys, especially in the rural areas. We heard here that the employment rates for boys are declining. Unemployment rates are still higher for girls and women. At Makerere University, in the last two graduations, 2024 and 2025, there was a majority graduation of girls compared to boys at 52 to 48%, and there was a public outcry. But we did not remember to question that since 1922 to 2023, we had a majority of boys graduating. The COVID-19 pandemic intensified the problem, and we saw even higher levels of teenage pregnancies. A report of the Budget Monitoring and Accountability Unit of the Ministry of Finance on COVID-19 and girl child education flagged girls' vulnerability to various forms of violence. In many parts of the country, there has been an increase in girls drawn into commercial sexual exploitation, trading sex for money, food, or even sanitary towels. Even at universities, where we see these girls graduating, they are trading sex for school fees. In Karamoja, girls are increasingly going to work in gold mines to make ends meet. UNDP reports, along with other data, that women in Uganda are still disproportionately affected by poverty, confirming the point that poverty in Uganda still has a female face. We see higher female-headed households with multidimensional poverty, and we still see a disparity in the genders because of limited access to education, discrimination in the labor market. Ladies and gentlemen, this has not come about overnight, and it will take many structural reforms to alter. Thus, as we focus on the plight of the boy child, we must be mindful to always keep the wider picture in mind and to ensure strategies for comprehensive empowerment of both boys and girls. Otherwise, we risk to leave further behind the girl child who is still not at pace with their male counterpart. Now, unlawful detentions, torture, inhuman treatment, and disregard of the constitutional right to bail are continuing concerns. Last November, we saw the arrest and arraignment in a military court of retired Colonel Dr. Kiza Besigye. There is a silence. There is a silence. As the Uganda People's Defense Forces Amendment Bill of 2025 was tabled in Parliament, our Supreme Court had already guided that trial of civilians in military courts should only happen in exceptional circumstances. Did the bill rescind the provisions of our beloved Constitution? I am flagging this because it is an issue that came about in 2024. And as a national human rights institution, you remain with a crucial role in advising the government to protect and preserve the Constitution. After all, we will all be witnesses, for it is said that history is that certainty produced at the point where the imperfections of memory meet the inadequacies of documentation. We will all be witnesses, for it is said that history is that certainty produced at the point where the imperfections of memory meet the adequacies of documentation. But then I emphasize the point of documentation and celebrate the commission that we are documenting. We must continue to document that, we must. So thank you very much, Uganda Human Rights Commission, for this report. As I finish, let me commend one last time the Commission for producing this report on the state of human rights and freedoms. It will provide the certainty which is caused by the imperfections of memory. Thank you for inviting me to be part of this process, and I congratulate you once again on publishing the 27th annual report. I thank you for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Dr. Zahara. A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for Dr. Zahara. As per our program, we have a plenary session for about 30 minutes. So ladies and gentlemen, this is opportune time to hear from you, our distinguished guests, in regard to our 27th annual report. I believe each one of us has got a copy. We have skimmed through, and we've had the members of the commission present the different thematic areas, and also Dr. Zahara to crown it nicely and discuss what we have shared in that 27th annual report. So without further ado, I think I'll move to the middle so that I can see everybody. We'll move to table per table, and then we can get Any thoughts, discussions towards the annual report? Thank you very much. Do we have any? Okay. Ladies, Sarah and Priscilla, do you mind if you open the table at the back where Dr. Sarah is seated?
Yeah, thank you very much, the Uganda Human Rights Commission, through your leadership and all staff, for launching this report, this year's report. I congratulate you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Excellencies in the room, all protocol observed. I will go straight to my general comment. I think this is the third time that we request to the Human Rights Commission to find a way of giving us a scorecard, a feel of what are human rights. It's, you know, the state of human rights in Uganda, like your title goes. We understand that you have to go into specific thematic areas and do detailed research, but the expectation of a receiver of a report is that I will get a feel of the state of human rights in Uganda. But when you come here and you have no section talking about broad overview, we have broad categories of human rights: civil, political, economic, social, and culture. Can you find time and create an overview of the state of human rights in Uganda? Areas we are chosen, maybe 2 specific areas per broad category, so that if a person receives a report, I get a feel of what the state of human rights in Uganda is. But as Dr. Zahara was debating, these are mainly good coverage, very important coverage of broadly social and economic rights, mainly the social, not the economic, mainly, I think almost, except for the topic on women human rights defenders. So when you hear about human rights in Uganda, you get an annual report. Can you really get a summary of what it is? I would really want to request the Commission that you move us into those broad and known categories of human rights and give us a summary of what it is in the year covered. Thank you very much.
There was another hand on the table.
Good evening, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. I'll stand on the protocols available. Thank you, Uganda Human Rights Commission, for this opportunity. My name is Brenda, and I'm doing a bachelor's in business administration. Thank you, and depending on the thematic areas, we have talked about the boy child, the refugee settlement, and Dr. Zahara has said no one needs to stay lesser. But for us as people with disabilities in the thematic areas, even when we talked about the boy child, yes, even a boy with disability is a boy child but is not considered. You have talked about quality education, the private schools, the government schools, but you have not considered the special schools, the mainstream schools. And when we talk about inclusion, because we are moving towards inclusion, what happens in the special schools? When we talk about children, the children with, sometimes we are less students of disability at the university, because even when it gets to getting into school, most of us don't get the privilege to get the education. Yes, we are talking about the quality, but then even we don't get it. To 2,040 students applied for university, but only 64 were considered in all universities in this country, Uganda. So we have very few students with disability. Does that mean we don't have a right to education? And other than school, so when we are talking about research, let's also be considered. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
My name is Ekudo Tom Julius. I am a member of parliament. Very clear, although there are many things, there are many gaps in the. You say that overcrowding in prisons. But when you look at the report in the recommendations, there's nothing that has been put in order for government to put things right. I expected in the report, the recommendations, that close to be there, maybe something to be put there, such that the government of Uganda should also intervene and say, let us act on this. But it is not there. When we look at, somebody talked about comprehensive legislations. It is also not included here. I expected it to be put there such that the government gets to know its weaknesses in order to address it. The other thing is somebody had not quoted his name, talked about the members of parliament, their rights were violated. It is normally opposition that suffer. Whether you want to or not, it is always opposition that suffers. And like 2023 in Soroti, the late the Dokolo County, member of parliament for Dokolo district, Honorable Cecilia May Hassel, rest in peace, suffered in 2023 when she was asked to come to be a guest of honor. And I am happy you have put it here because at least you looked into it. You say that the human rights are not for other people, but it is for all. Nobody should claim that he should have more rights than somebody. But in the actual sense in Uganda, the opposition suffer a lot. I am opposition, yes. Where you go, whether you are doing something good, you have to be conscious of the military, of the police, of any arrest, any torture. You find it in the prisons, there is overcrowding. And somebody mentioned that we have the prisons which are not gazetted and the gazetted ones. What shall we do about it? Mutwe, is it Mutwe here? Is suffering? He has suffered. Although he has now appeared in courts, but he has already suffered. But we don't get anywhere forward. Even the government is not ashamed of torturing people. So for that reason, I am here as an opposition, and I am not scared of talking about it, such that government will also do something maybe to correct themselves. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Asime Anthony, the Vice President of the Radical Nuba. And I'll not bang the table in that particular way. And now, I would like to stand on the protocol already observed, and I do thank the Uganda Human Rights Commission, particularly the chairperson, for coming out in the recent past and do what we've always expected you to do from the members of the public. We do applaud you. And I bring that message from the Council of the Radical New Bar. Now, my concern goes to, it's in chapter 8, looking at the complaints, the intervention by the Uganda Human Rights Commission and complaints management. Now, looking at the statistics of the cases or the cases that have been registered vis-a-vis the ones that have been handled, it points to the same challenge you are seeing in the judiciary, which is case backlog. I'm looking at a total of cases that have been partially heard, being 227, the ones pending being 989, and the grand total being 1,216. Now, this is a very big number, considering this was as at 31st December 2024. So the question for me would be, what we need to see probably in this report would be, what is the Commission doing in resolving this matter? But then again, more puzzling is when I go to the last, the challenges and the recommendations. I imagine, because the only challenge we have is that the Commission experienced difficulties doing investigations in securing documentary evidence from health institutions, law enforcement and security agencies as evidence, in critical to corroborate allegations of human rights violations, particularly allegations of torture. We all know that in allegations of torture, you're not going to find any documentary evidence, especially from these security organs. We've seen how people have been abducted, they've been tortured. It's just the evidence we see. Now, is this the only challenge really that has hindered this kind of development in this area? And again, we have only one recommendation, also which points to the Minister of Health, Uganda Police Force, and Defense Forces, as well as prison services, should establish mechanisms for proper record keeping. Now, aren't we supposed to have more recommendations in this area to resolve this problem, especially the one of case backlog, where we're having so many pending cases? I want to believe the numbers are increasing. Just like I imagine the challenges could be more than just this one. That is just the concern I have. Otherwise, thank you very much for the initiative.
I see one more. Madam, oh, okay. After her, then Madam Sekaja.
Okay. Thank you so much, and I just appreciate the Uganda Human Rights Commission, but all protocol observed. I'm Brenda Kugonza from the Women Human Rights Defenders Network, Uganda. I want to appreciate Uganda Human Rights Commission for your role in highlighting critical issues and pushing for accountability. But I must express my frustration. Sometimes the reports are lacking strong condemnation of violations, and I think now for us to really put those violators on the spot. And then the other thing, I think, you correct me if I'm wrong, I would also like to know what is happening with the past recommendations that remain unimplemented. Thank you.
My name is Margaret Sekaja, Human Rights Center, Uganda. I just wanted to say that I'm sure, Mariam, before you leave this room, issue which is trading will be the issue. It might not have come in your report because it's 2024. I don't know the modalities of inclusiveness of trading issues. Every Ugandan, once they know the Uganda Human Rights Commission has launched a report, will tune in to know your take on the issue of the law for trying civilians in military courts. It will be a trading issue, and I'm sure even the media are going to make it a trading issue for your report. So we have to devise a methodology on when the report is launched earlier than the issue which is trading in the country. How do you handle that? Zahara has tried to bring out a suggestion, but I would also suggest that either in your opening remarks or in your concluding remarks, you will have to bring that issue on board. Otherwise, the report is very good, thank you very much, but people want to hear issues trading in the country. And even all over the world, this is going to be the issue. The Uganda Human Rights Commission has come out. What do they say about the issue which is trading in the country? Thank you.
If there are no more hands, allow me to invite Director Ruth Sekindi, the Director Monitoring and Inspections, to speak to the issues that we have raised concerning the annual report. And we thank you all for commending us and for the recommendations and feedback on how to improve. Thank you very much. You're welcome, Director.
Thank you very much. To our stakeholders, and we have so many of you in one room, it gives us great honor, and we love the candidness and the openness, and we take it in good faith, and I think it's very positive criticisms and guidance. First of all, I want to thank Dr. Zahara. She never disappoints. Thank you so much for always being very honest, very candid, and she's a friend, and it's always a pleasure to listen to her analyzing and critiquing and guiding on human rights work. While we call ourselves experts, it's very good to have another eye from another expert. Thank you very much. I'll start with Mrs. Sekaja, and she has, who's also a former chairperson of the Uganda Human Rights Commission, and she has raised concern about trending issue, and the trending issue is about the trial of the recently passed law, or what Parliament has recently passed, on trial of civilians before the court-martial. The Commission is currently doing a detailed analysis, even though we did not get an opportunity to appear, but we are coming up with a special report, and I think we shall invite you when we are discussing this in great detail. We wanted to have a bigger, security in the room, the relevant people, members of Parliament in the room when we are discussing this issue, so that it is a topical issue that needs all the attention that it deserves. So, Madam Sekaja, it's on the table. It's one of those things we're working on. Let me go back to where we started in some of the issues that we discussed or have been raised. Overcrowding, and there are no recommendations. If you go back to the chapter, you realize that there's been a lot of recommendations in the report. The recommendations are there on overcrowding. And the question that we have always grappled with is, when we are talking about human rights-based approach, should we call for building of new prisons? And the answer is no, we don't want new prisons. We want to divert people from the children, the decriminalization of petty offenses, so that some people who are not supposed to be in prisons are diverted from prisons. And that's why in the report you'll see, or you heard Commissioner Kano talking about the Karamojong beggars who ended up in prison. You are criminalizing poverty, because then they are being charged with idle and disorderly. So we are saying the people who are not supposed to be in prisons should be removed from prisons. You cannot criminalize poverty, idle and disorderly, rogue and vagabond, all those people who are crowding prisons because of petty offenses. Get out. And I think the recommendations are very well put in there. In regard to persons with disabilities left out, I think for those who have been with us for years, majority of who are stayed in this room, you know that every other year we have a chapter on persons with disabilities. We have talked about persons with disabilities. We have even a full unit on a vulnerable desk unit that handles persons with disabilities, including LGBTI issues. So we have not isolated. And actually, those ones are also in the report. If you look at the report, go back and read the report, you shall find all of that in. So we have not left anyone behind. it is our heart, it's at the bottom of our hearts. Ms. Sarah Birete, I'm glad you raised this, the overview. We had actually put there a chapter on the overview, but then we also realized that when you go into the details of the complaints received and investigated, they have civil and political rights, the issues of torture, detention beyond 48 hours, and all that are actually in the complaints received, the complaints we're investigating, they're in the detail. But like you have guided, so we are conflicted. We bring them in because most of the issues you're conflicted. But trust me, next year we'll have Kiza Besije as a standalone, Kawempe as a standalone, so that everyone is happy. It will be reflected in the report. Only that many times the detail is in the complaints section, and the civil and political rights that the people that we are calling the broader overview is in the detail of the complaints we are handling. There is also the issue of what is the Commission doing, or what do you do about complaints where you make recommendations, and what happens to the previous recommendations. Parliament, this report is tabled before Parliament. Parliament summons the stakeholders, and then we do a follow-up on the recommendations. We follow up over the years, and you will see, I think in next year's report, we shall give a track record of how government is complying with our recommendations. Strong condemnation. I don't know who talked about strong condemnation. Okay. In human rights work, we try to be very diplomatic. It is part of the art of diplomacy and how to get what you want. You may not use insulting language, but the way we package our work or our words is very, very consistent with human rights standards. And if you look at the international recommendations from international bodies or international mechanisms, you realize that it's very consistent with what we have. The way the recommendations are couched and structured. We are not confrontational, but we state what it is, politely, respectfully, but putting the message forward. It is just the art of diplomacy. So we are not losing anything. We are trying to be consistent with the way it is done internationally. I think I've dealt with the trial of civilians before the General Court Martial. I think that is it for me. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
We actually come out strong. We are not diplomatic all the time. Once in a while we get harsh where the situation warrants. And that's why, you know that in our tribunal role, we give orders actually. When we hear cases, we don't request, we give orders. Invoking our authority under the Constitution. And there is a certain order we issued recently. That was not very diplomatic, as you may remember. World over, tough times like this call for tough people. And tough people need all the support. I call upon every one of you for your support for me, for the Uganda Human Rights Commission. I have very few words to say by way of closure, just to appreciate all of you, distinguished guests, for coming to grace this function. We are very grateful to each and every one of you. Thank you, Dr. Zahamentri, including commending us and pointing out the gaps in our report. We have listened very attentively to the comments. Be assured of that. Thank you, Honorable Ekudo, Dr. Sarah Birete, Brenda. There were two Brendas, including Ms. Kugonza, Mrs. Sekaja, our pioneer, chairperson, and everyone for your comments. There is a saying in one of the local languages. It goes, "Ensowere kwagala yekugwa kugwa." Ruth, can you translate that?
Yes. It hurts your wound so that it wakes you up and you remember to go for treatment. So we've noted those comments and we will seriously consider them. We also wish to invite you to fully participation of our next report, the one for 2025. Be free to suggest to us what to focus on or highlight. You can give us these suggestions in any forum, whether formal or informal, whether on X, or you write to us. So Dr. Sarah Virete, don't get tired of shaking us and waking us up. This time we will listen and act. Thank you, Hope, for being an excellent MC for this occasion. You've been awesome. As I end, I request for a group photograph. It is not every day that you get to host this huge number of dignitaries. I can't start mentioning them lest I risk forgetting some of them. Thank you, all of you, Your Excellencies, the ambassadors. Thank you, Your Lordships, Your Lordship, the chairperson of the Judicial Service Commission, Your Lordship, Justice Ida Natiganda, who about 2 months back was our director, Legal Services, Complaints, Investigations and Legal Services, for traveling all the way from Rukundiri, and for your contribution to this report. Thank you, Mrs. Sekaja, our pioneer chairperson. Thank you, Inspectorate of Government. You are represented here. I can see Annette is representing the Inspectorate of Government, of which I was part about 4 years ago. Thank you, civil society, all of you, for supporting us through that period. And we invite you to continue to support us. Thank you, the media, to your work as media. So we need documentary evidence that today we have hosted you. And the most...
Download the Salt Media app from the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store.